Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Business Podcast, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Leah Faul on the line, and she's owner over at 15,000 Cubits. Leah, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so today's topic, an interesting one and very timely as more and more people are moving to virtual teams. So we're going to talk about virtual team tactics and really value systems that drive internal, external, and individual growth, so all very relevant things. So, Leah, before we get into today's topic, I'd like to know a little bit more about what you're doing over at 15,000 Cubits. So tell us a little bit more about the company, please.
Yeah, absolutely. 15,000 Cubits is a digital marketing agency. We're a boutique agency of experts in the area of social media, paid marketing, SEO, and website design. We specialize in tying website design, development projects, and strategic company growth into cross-functional strategies that involve paid and SEO strategies. But really our secret sauce is taking your growth goals that span out, into those big, hairy, audacious goals that go out 5-10 years and bringing it into the tangible day-to-day of what happens into our digital marketing.
So at the end of this, I'll give you the opportunity to leave, contact information, website or whatever, so that people can follow up and learn more. But I want to make sure that the right types of individuals do connect, kind of either companies, it could be size or niche or otherwise. Like, what's typically a good fit to work with 15,000 Cubits?
Yeah, absolutely. That's been something we've for 5 years, we've been trying to figure out the answer to that question. And I feel like in the past year, we've kind of figured it out. So one of our values as an organization is growth mindset. And what we've realized is that all of our clients are either rapidly growing or they are about to rapidly grow, and they are leaning into their growth and really making decisions based on the desire and expectation of rapid growth. So I would say whether it's a solopreneur or a small business or an enterprise, we work with teams of all sizes. But the common denominator is that they are either growing very fast or they're about to grow really fast because they're investing in the growth.
So, and thank you for sharing that, first off. And I think it's very relevant to today's topic because you're really dealing with thriving companies daily. So let's go a little bit further into today's topic. So how does a company really have a thriving culture? I mean, what does that look like to you? Because this is the type of companies that you're working with daily.
Yeah, I would say especially when you're growing rapidly or when growth has slowed down and you've become stagnant, either one of those instances, which I think you can find that no matter what time it is, you could be in either one of those places because all businesses have ups and downs. But I think that when you find yourself in either stagnant growth or rapid growth, having a thriving culture is sometimes challenging because the growth doesn't feel good. And so I found that having intentionality on the leadership side, just to set up the team to understand that this is a part of the process and the only way to get to the other side of it is to push through it and to push into areas of discomfort and to have the willingness to grow. It's just like breaking down muscle tissue in bodybuilding, how they do that. You have to break down the muscle before you can build that muscle back up. And it's the same thing for growing quickly or stagnant growth. And it's really important to have that intentionality on the leadership side.
So couldn't agree with you more. Like the idea of intentionality, and really, like when the company's growing fast, there's going to be, like you said, there's just going to be challenges that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise, to make sure that, your company culture and everything sticks. I feel like there's probably some differences in the marketing side of things too. Like marketing for companies that are growing tremendously fast, I feel like that also can be a different challenge than maybe your typical marketing. So how does your team address that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the term that comes to mind is you have to slow down to speed up. And when you're growing quick, you want to lean in and you want to do so much so quickly and throw everything out there. And the most important thing that you can do is to take a step back and look and make sure that you're targeting the right audiences, that you have the right messaging, that you have the right strategy. And once you have the strategy in place, you can then get tactical about how you're going to deploy that strategy. But rather than just panicking and moving into tactics right away, it's very important to make sure that you're doing the most important things, because very often the things that you naturally would do in marketing, which are more of an instinct, are the things that aren't really going to move the needle and get you the most market share or low-hanging fruit quickly, which is what you need to be doing when you're growing fast. You need to be doing the most important things and letting the rest go.
No, well said. Can you give me, and you don't have to give a specific client or anything like that, but I just want to put a little bit of meat around that one. Can you give me an example of just like maybe a trade-off or something else, or that you've just seen in general that works for these types of companies? Not asking for, by the way, some type of, silver bullet, or we know one size does not fit all. We get that, but just something that you've seen where it's like, oh yeah, like this is why it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So depending on the size of the team, I'll lean into a client that we have that's a much larger client that has different department heads and leaders. And so this instance, rapid growth. And they had an issue with their logo and their messaging, and there was some pushback from different departments. And the marketing team made the decision to just go ahead and move in the direction that had the path of least resistance. And as that, moved forward, what we began to realize was that the right decision was, back in the beginning, to kind of push through that resistance and have those discussions. And like I said just a second ago, look at who the audience is and look at what you're trying to accomplish and make that decision and communicate it out to the different departments. And, by not doing that, it creates a lot more work and effort and lost time, which is usually the biggest thing, but not doing it right the first time. So that's kind of that trade-off. Like sometimes it's the path of least resistance that you head down when you're in a rapid growth season, and that path of least resistance isn't always going to be where you need to go. And that causes a lot of reworking, which is what you don't want to be doing when you're in an opportune time in the business where you should be gaining as much market share as you can.
So I think something, especially in rapidly growing companies, that doesn't get enough attention, if you will, is the idea of value systems and like really making those come to life. Because when you think about it, everything's moving really fast, and everything, whether it's growth or otherwise, everything's moving fast. Sometimes like that slow down concept you said, it's sometimes that value system part of the things gets lost in the mix, if you will. What's your opinion on how you can make a value system really come to life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are lots of ways that you can make a value system come to life, but when specifically looking at a company that is rapidly growing and how a value system can come into play and come to life, I would say first off, it's so necessary, because one of the things that a value system does is it enables team members to make decisions, and it reduces the amount of discussions and requests that need to be had, where everyone's circling around the value system and understanding how the organization ticks and able to have that decision-making power on their own. And so when you have like the example we just discussed, when you have those instances where you run into a resistance and there's a team member that's trying to explain themselves. In that instance, if a value system has been clearly communicated of inclusivity, or everyone has a voice, or respect or integrity, or any of those things that businesses can really rally around, that can be used as a building block and a foundation for individuals to actually push their initiatives through in the right way, in a way that doesn't create division or, negative fallout. It's much easier to say, our value system as an organization is everyone has a voice. And in this instance, I appreciate your voice. However, my experience in this area of expertise is this, and it's important that we're all hearing each other. And that sounds much different than a combative conversation or shying away from it. So it creates that pressure and that movement, and it creates that solid ground to have those decisions move forward, the decisions that need to be made. And I guess that would just be one specific instance of how to do it, but I think there are so many applications of that.
Fantastic. Well, Leah, it's been awesome having you on the show today. Really appreciate you giving us some insight into really, what's going to help these fast-growing companies thrive ultimately. So if somebody's listening to this and they want more information on 15,000 cubits and to connect with you and your team and your work overall, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, they can find us at 15,000cubits.com, or they can shoot us an email at growth@15,000cubits.com.
Fantastic. Well, Leah, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you're a first-time listener, don't forget, hit that subscribe button. We want you to be a return listener. Have some more great guests lined up for you. And Leah, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.